Okay, guys, so I think we're good to go. So first of all, thank you for logging into this webinar, which is the last in a series called Reading Avenue, an avenue to successful reading for all. So today we're going to cover in Boardmaker Reading Avenue. It's the most accessible, comprehensive curriculum available for teaching pre-reading and reading skills. It includes 3 levels, 8 thematic units, 120 books, more than 1,000 activities, games, data collection and more. And we're going to show you how to find Reading Avenue. There'll be links to show you, as we've covered in previous webinars, how to create a student, how to assign activities to students, and how to manage student activity lists. And the old assumption was that literacy is learned in a predetermined sequential manner, that is, linear, additive, and unitary. We now know that language and literacy skills develop concurrently and they are mutually reinforcing, which is what this paradigm slide is all about. There's a clear connection between speaking and listening, reading and writing, and of course Toby Dynavox, being an AAC company, they seek to help people to speak who have difficulty doing so, giving them a means through alternative and augmentative communication, AAC. So as an AAC company, Toby Dynavox have to come to understand that helping our learners to increase their literacy skills, learning how to read and write, is going to help them become better speakers, whether it's verbally or using an AAC system. They know that when we grow one skill, the other one goes along with it, and that they are all really combined and develop recursively, meaning it's a constant spiral. The more I read, the better speaker I'm going to become. Even at my age, the more I write, the better listener I'll be. The more I speak, the better writer. All of these things are growing together, and it's at a stage of life. It's not at any stage of life. So Toby Dynavox thought it was important to give their AAC users a mechanism to support the development of their reading and writing skills. The happy news is that Reading Avenue isn't just for those using AAC, but for any struggling reader or writer. Toby Dynavox believes, as did David Yoder, who was the director of the Centre for Literacy and Disability Studies out of the University of North Carolina, that no student is too anything to learn to read and write, regardless of what level or label they are given, whether they are profound and multiple learning disability, which is labelled PMLD, or they have complex communication needs, whether they're aged 4 or they're aged 44. The research strongly indicates that anyone can learn to read and write to some degree, to some level. And here we have the rock star of literacy acquisition, Dr. Karen Erickson. She is now the current director of the Centre for Literacy and Disability Studies. And this, I strongly recommend that, and we give you the link to this. She was giving a keynote speech at the International Society for AAC conference called Communication Matters in the UK back in September 2019. She discusses why it is essential, why it is critical. It is a critical skill for people who use AAC to learn how to read and write. And I totally recommend taking the 55 minutes that it takes to watch this video, because it's very thought-provoking and it forms the basis of what Reading Avenue was developed upon. So Reading Avenue is a literacy program designed to teach non-readers how to read. We know it works because it's evidence-based. Karen Erickson and the Centre for Literacy and Disability Studies helped Toby Dynavox develop it. It is a comprehensive program, not just focusing on phonics or spelling, but focusing on a little bit of everything always, as per the paradigm. If we practice speaking and listening, reading and writing, these things are going to grow together. Reading Avenue is also differentiated to 3 different levels. So depending where your learners are at, they can start with absolutely no skills or be on the way to reading and writing, and we will be able to support them with Reading Avenue. It is also fully accessible. In fact, the development of Reading Avenue was delayed by over a year while engineers ensured that it was compatible with the eye gaze technology that Toby Dynavox has developed, and likewise with switch scanning as well, so that everyone can use Reading Avenue successfully. And Reading Avenue is free with Boardmaker 7 online subscription, including subscribers to Boardmaker 7. So Reading Avenue is a curriculum that's found within this Boardmaker Online tool. The tool that many of you have been using to develop learning resources and communication supports to put the visuals around your classroom and support positive behaviour. Well, then you get the curriculum alongside this, both of which, the ready-made stuff together with the stuff that you've created, can be assigned to our students through the Student Centre. And this is the way that they can access the work that you've created or the curriculum, whether they are in the same classroom as you, across town at home or across the world. They can get the Student Centre via website or app and access the resource either you've made or assigned Reading Avenue using any type of access method. Reading Avenue comes with 120 books, over 1,000 activities. We're going to take a look at the lesson plans and the communication supports provided. It is mainly an interactive resource, but there are print elements to it, and it can collect data so we can see how our students are doing along the way. At the very beginning of Reading Avenue, we sit down with the Avenue selection tool. So this is found within Boardmaker Online, and we answer 5 questions about our learner. So we go across the answer of each of these questions, starting at the left, and it progresses to the right. And we're going to be asking about the student's experience with alphabet and letters, about their experience with sounds and phonics, with their experience with written word and decoding and reading and writing. And you can see over the left-hand side, it really starts with students who have no knowledge, no experience, our very beginners. And it moves up to those who have some experience, who can identify some letters, they know some sounds. And from there, after answering these 5 questions, Reading Avenue is going to make a suggestion as to where you start with your learner. And I'm going to explain that a little bit further. If it says your learner is on Avenue A, we're looking at learners that are at the exploratory or play-based level. So this is for our very beginners, giving them the experience of interacting with letters, with sounds, engaging with reading and writing activities. And then we move up to Avenue B. They're now transitioning from still working in a play-based environment to develop some independent skills. As they go further on to Avenue C, they are learners who are now demonstrating some independent skills, but still need some guidance and support along the way. Learners do not have to come to us on Avenue A and work the way through. They can be placed on whichever avenue is right for them. Also, you know your learner best. If Reading Avenue suggests Avenue B, but you feel, okay, Avenue B for reading, but Avenue A for writing, then you can always do as you feel best and chop and change. And I'll explain that as we go through. Once we decide what avenue to start our learner on, then we decide what topic we want to choose for them. And you can choose from any of these. We suggest you choose what works best for your learner or within the learning environment. So right now, my daughter is crazy about puppies. I've yet to invest in one. So animals would be a great place for her to start, because I want to get her hooked and engaged in using the books and the activities that Reading Avenue provides. But maybe the classroom next term, we're going to be talking about weather as part of science. So I'd like to hook to that. whatever works for you and your learners. They do not suggest which topic to start with. And then within all of these avenues, within all of these topics, you are given comprehensive instruction. We're going to be working on alphabet and phonological awareness. We're going to be working on shared, guided and independent reading activities. We'll have opportunities to engage in shared and independent writing. And there's lots of opportunities to really find out what our learner is thinking, comprehension part. And of course, we include communication supports for that, because so many of our learners, they're not able to tell us what they're thinking. So we need to give them the opportunities with aided language or communication supports. So here's a chart that shows you all the different types of activities available throughout the avenues. You'll see guided, shared, and independent reading happening throughout all three avenues. And there's lots of opportunities for writing throughout all three avenues. And then the activities that look at alphabet, phonics and spelling are really going to vary as we progress from the exploratory to play-based to developing independent skills. And we're going to look at some samples for this, and you can go into your Boardmaker Online account or trial and look through these yourself. At the basis of this is a lesson plan. There's a lesson guide that is repetitive. It provides repetition with variety, and with every theme there are 5 books. So right now you can see I'm in Avenue A with the theme of animals. These are the target sounds and word endings that we're going to focus on within the avenue, within this theme. And there is the first book that I'm going to introduce and work with, and then I'll explain the instruction pattern. There are 5 books for Avenue A, animals, 5 books for Avenue B, 5 books for Avenue C, for all of the different themes we saw earlier. We have an opportunity to engage in shared, guided and independent reading. The books are now the same throughout all experiences. They just change the supports that surround them. So if someone chooses to read on their own or have an independent reading opportunity, then they're going to go through the book, read it on their own and be able to press the read button if they want the words read out to them. If they're engaging in a shared reading activity, then they're going to choose to read it with an adult. And for us knowledgeable others or adults, we have the little prompts to remind us to stop on each page and engage the learner in what we're seeing, not quiz them on the content. How many legs does a crab have? How many eyes do you see? But more engage them and help them make connection with their thoughts and what they're going to say about this page and the printed words that they're seeing within the book. So maybe stop and say, "Oh, I've seen a crab. Have you ever seen a crab? They can snap at you. Snap, snap, snap. Watch out." Just making some kind of reference and open-ended comment to then hopefully help our learners to engage with the book and the content that we're looking at. Now let's move on to explain the different levels of the book. In Avenue A, the books are very language rich because this is our exploratory phase. We're at a play-based level here. So we're not expecting our learners to read these books independently. We're reading it to them and engaging them within our shared reading activity and making lots of comments and providing lots of opportunities to engage them with the words that are on the page, as well as the words that we want to speak and the things that we're thinking about. Then in Avenue B, we're going to see the language really dipping down because this is where we're expecting some learners to identify some letters and some sounds and maybe even a few words. In Avenue C, the language dips up again because here we're really exhibiting some independent skills and they may be able to read most of the words on the page, of course with some support from some of the trickier ones. Now within the instructional routine, we always start with a guided reading activity. So this is the way to give our learners the opportunity to engage with the book repetitiously, but with variety. So we're going to read the book 3 different times. the three different reasons using an anchor, read, apply approach. And we see that within the lesson plan, we here again with Avenue A and animals, we're looking at book 1. And we're going to read that book for the first time. It's called All Black and White. To ask our learners as we read the book to find out which of the animals they've seen previously. So we're going to engage in an anchor activity where they're going to tell us what animals they've seen at the zoo or around their house that are black and white. And then they're going to read the story to tell us which animals they have seen are also in the book. So that's the first day we read it. The second time we read it, we're going to read the same exact book, but this time we're going to read the book to decide which animals we like best. So that's day 2. And then on day 3, we're going to read the book for a third time, but we're going to read the story to decide whether we think zebras are black and white or white and black. So let me show you how guided reading works. First, we introduce the story. So, Nancy, we're going to read a book, All Black and White. So I want you to think about how some of the black and white animals that you've seen. Okay, Nancy, so here's our anchor. Tell me which animals have you seen? And as you see, we're using symbols here to support communication. We're not worried about Nancy reading these words. We're worried about Nancy telling us about which animals she's seen and making a connection with the content of this book. So Nancy might tell me she's seen a black and white cat because they have a black and white cat at home. And when she went to the zoo, she saw a black and white penguin. So we discuss which animals Nancy's seen that are black and white. Okay, Nancy, now you told me you saw a penguin and a cat. Let's read this book to find out which of the animals you've seen are also in the book. Notice now, no symbol support above the words, because this is where we start to make connections to the words that they have just spoken to me, cat and penguin, and making connections to what we're seeing on the page. So now we're going through and read this book, All Black and White, and we're going to see about seals and zebras and pandas and possibly a kitten and possibly a penguin. So we go through and read these books, stopping to comment on each page and focusing on specific words and helping to make connections. And at the end, okay, Nancy, you told me at the beginning that you saw a cat and a penguin. So can you tell me which of these animals that you've seen are also in the book? And then she can tell me penguin. Of course, this is the answer part. Anchor, read, and now the reply answer part. In Avenue B and C, these are going to become much harder. In Avenue A, we're at our exploratory and play-based level, so they're quite open-ended and we try to keep it really positive. Throughout the reading of these books, we always have access to this talk button to help facilitate communication, to help Nancy engage with what's on the page and prompt us to start with conversation. This could be for someone who is verbal or non-verbal. So when I'm looking at this book about planets, I can tell you, you know what? I know something is really cool. And then I can click on symbols to say, I know that there are red planets up in space. So also wonderful for me to be able to model the knowledgeable other. Now these phrases stay the same across all 120 books in Reading Avenue, and then the symbols will reflect the content of the book we're reading. So then from our guided reading, we then have different activities that we're going to focus on. Specific target sounds, as well as word endings. So we can see that there are a number of activities provided in Reading Avenue that can go after the reading experience. So a sample in reading in Avenue A is having different onset sounds, different beginning of words, so that we can play with and put in front of the different word endings. And right here, this experience is going to be fail-proof. Whatever I choose, I'm making a word. I then get to see that the word here, that word, and experience it being read out in a sentence too. So that's in Avenue A. In Avenue B, I've got again onset sounds with different word endings, and here I can do the same thing. I can play with these different words. I can see what happens when I put different sounds in front of different word endings. Then, because I'm starting to edge toward developing independent skills, the next step is I start to sort the real words from the silly words and also words that rhyme. So we take you down a little bit further to develop those independent skills. And finally, in Avenue C, we have to read the sentence and there's one highlighted word and then a clear wrong or right answer. So we have to find the word that rhymes with right. In this case, might. So this is just an example. We have a number of different activity types, but it gives you some idea of the different avenues and the ways we present content. Now we work on what we call rhymes or word endings. That's R-I-M-E-S. No, it's not an American spelling. Rhymes are actually word endings like ack and all, ick and op. And we focus on 37 of them as defined by Wiley and Durrell to engage our learners in what's called analogy-based decoding, which is kind of a fancy phrase for teaching our learners to identify patterns. So it reminds me of Dr. Seuss, and this was true of my children when they were about 3 or 4 years old. We'd play with onset and rhymes while driving in the car, and we'd work out how many words we could rhyme by changing the first letter, the onset of each, mirroring what we had read in Dr. Seuss books, which were very popular for children around that age and even a little older. When we work on these 37 common rhymes defined by Wiley and Durrell, we are unlocking the key to decoding over 500 words. So it's a really powerful tool for our learners steeped in evidence base, and that's where what we're using in Reading Avenue. Phone is wanting me to answer, but I won't. So moving on from alphabet, letter and phonological awareness, we provide plenty of opportunities for writing. We start maybe with some shared writing activities. So here we have something that we call chart writing, where what we're trying to do is help our learners make connections with the words that they're hearing, the words that they are speaking, and the words that they'll be writing. So we go back to our animals theme, and Nancy, we're going to write a book about how animals move. So Nancy, I want you to tell me, what do you think are ways animals can move? Again, symbols are here because we want Nancy to tell us what she thinks. It's not about decoding these words. We don't have symbols above these words because that's these words up here. Because we want her to make a connection with those words. And at the end, we can read the book that Nancy has helped us to write. So we can say, remember, you told me how you thought animals can move. Let's read this book, which you just helped me write. Animals can hop, and it creates a book from the answers Nancy provided. Oh, I'll just ignore So it's making those connections between the words we're hearing and the words we're saying to the words we're writing. Those shared writing opportunities, we then move on to independent writing opportunities, where Nancy can engage in writing for a purpose, telling us about puppies, but then always giving her access to all the letters so that she can use the letters and sounds, that onset sounds and words together, and start to write independently and improve her spelling skills. Now, all of the curriculum activities in this curriculum are US and UK standards aligned. And I would love for this to be done with the Australian national curriculum. They're aligned to the UK and the US curriculum, depending on which you select when you log into Reading Avenue. So I'm hoping that sometime in the future, unfortunately, it's not an easy matter to go through the whole things and align them with the Australian curriculum, but I'm hoping that we can do that at some stage. And all these can be assigned into the Boardmaker Student Centre so your students can access them, whether it's on the interactive whiteboard in your classroom, or when they're sitting at home on their computer or on an iPad, or even their AA system. You'll get a copy of this PowerPoint, a document with links so that you can work through creating a student and assigning activities to them, or revisit the webinar about using the Student Centre. Few minutes that are left, I'm going to log into Boardmaker Online and show you where Reading Avenue is found. But before I do that, there was a question in Tina's webinar, and it was a very good question. It asked, does Reading Avenue move a student on automatically? The answer is no, but you can use the Reading Avenue selection tool to do this. You should probably do this systematically, maybe at the very beginning or of the intervention, and then after working through a unit or two, because you can print these out. So it's a wonderful record of achievement to show maybe students have moved from a few more dots on the left to a few more dots on the right, even if it keeps them in Avenue A. So you log into your Boardmaker Online and you just click on the curriculum tab. And if we scroll down, we have what we covered last webinar, the Boardmaker Core First Learning, and here we have Boardmaker Reading Avenue. And so now if we click on Use It, we get our Q opportunities, and as I said with Core Learning, pick the UK because it's not just they spell colour, C-O-L-O-U-R, but they have more related things to the UK as well as spellings. So we click on UK, and here we get program docs, I beg your pardon. We can click on that, and you've got your program overview, you've got the letter to parents, frequently asked questions, and Reading Avenue white paper. And then we have various sort of activities. So we're going to look at animals, so we can click on our animals, and there we have our 3 avenue levels, A, B, and C. But if you look at the top here, we have the avenue selection tool, and we need to scroll back up to that, and you can see that avenue selection tool. And if I click on here, we have it. I've downloaded it automatically into the Student Centre, which comes in, which is installed with the new Boardmaker 7. So you can see on the left here we have very starter, very beginner type activities, and you can fill all of this out for this particular activity, and and then it will tell you, you can put in the student name, and you can print these off and keep them as a record of any progress that the student might be making. We go back to this now, and then you can have a look. If we click on our Avenue A, then we see the resources that you get. If you click on resources, we'll scroll to the top again. There's the letter to the parent, and there it is there. That's the downloaded letter to the parent. You can print that off, fill it out, and send it home with your student for parents to keep up with what you're doing in school. This is the quick lesson guide, and that we showed you earlier, and this gives you a guide to a lesson for each of these. And then, of course, we come down, and when we come to Book A, there it is, all black and white, and we can sort of have a look at that, and we can assign this to students, etc., and get feedback on what this is all about, which is great. And so these are, as we just saw, these are the 5 suggested books, book 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as you can see over here. And then associated with each book are the activity sets, again, that you can assign to students. And from here, when we go back to our Avenue selection tool, we can go to Avenue A, and we can do all black and white, and we can see all of that, and we can, as you can see, you can very easily assign these to students all day black and white. So we can click on here and assign to students, and here I've got my list of students, and I can say, okay, I'm going to send that to Jasmine, and we assign, and Jasmine will receive that, and we can then go to our student center, and Jasmine can log in and see her activities. So if again I go to students, I can go to my classroom view, and I should be able to, things are a little bit clunky at the moment with the release of Boardmaker 7. I do apologize for that, and I'm hoping that it's much improved soon. I look at my classroom view, and I hope I'm going to do that, but it appears not at the moment. Never mind, I'll go to curriculum, and I'll go to Reading Avenue, go back to where I was, and select my animals, select Avenue A, come on, and again, I should be able to sort of see that myself. I don't know quite yet how I've assigned it to the student. Maybe that is yet to be finally working. Okay, so that's pretty much about Reading Avenue. I do suggest you guys have got hopefully a Christmas break with time to investigate this. It does show a great opportunity for teaching students, our learners that are struggling with difficulty in literacy acquisition, especially if they are non-verbal. It does offer a scheme that is fully inclusive with all the various access methods to be teaching this approach to acquisition of literacy. And it's not to say that the student's going to sit down, and certainly the students that I worked with, it's not necessarily going to be that straightforward. You might sort of introduce reading the book the first time on a Monday morning, and then it might be Tuesday morning, and you might be able to go through and read the book a second time, but then you need to do something else, and so it might be Tuesday afternoon before you might get to do an associated activity with that. So all of these things can take a lot longer than just doing them sequentially, and that's really up to you to know your students best as to what to introduce when. So if you have any questions, please sort of forward them to Nikki, and we will let you know when Boardmaker 7 is fully up and running. We'll let you know, and hopefully we'll be doing some Boardmaker 7 webinars in the new year. So watch our website to let you know when they're available. And I thank you again for your time attending these webinars. And if I don't hear from you before, please have a safe and magical Christmas. It's looking better despite COVID-19. Farewell, everybody. Thank you.